Hey, y'all, welcome back to the Late Night Vision Show. This is episode number 368. My name is Jason Robertson, owner of Outdoor Legacy. And as always, I got my co host Hans here with me tonight. What is going on, Hans?
We are in the business. If you don't know the hunting industry, the summertime right now, we're, what is it, the middle of May, getting into the summer. Phone calls are starting to slow down just a little bit. It's a nice little break. I can actually, Jason, we can actually take a lunch break and eat a sandwich. Um, you and I are planning to meet down on the Texas Gulf Coast next month. Might do a little bit of fishing down there just to kind of
Hope so.
celebrate surviving the crazy time of year. But I want you to know I was traveling this week. And first of all, you have to promise that you're not going to watch this show. Now, if you don't know out there, the listeners, I can hear Jason, but I can't see him, and vice versa. He cannot see me. He can hear me. So, Jason, you have to promise not to go and watch this show in between now and then the next time I see you, which probably isn't a very safe promise because I don't think that you watch.
I don't know what this is about, but
Okay.
I'm literally going to be
We're
pulling
going to do a
my
little show and
phone
tell
up right
because
now. So
I was traveling this past week. Daughter had a tennis tournament, and I stopped and got you a little gift on the way down to San Antonio. I got you something. I'm going to show the viewers, but I don't want you to see it because I want it to be a surprise when you get it.
concerned about this.
But I got it. It cost me $10, and I bought it at a gas station. So if that tells you anything,
If it's not like a Bucky's head or ears
no,
or costume
no,
or something,
even way better. So I'm showing the viewers right now. So this, keep in mind, we are meeting on the Texas Gulf Coast. So everybody take a look at that. If you're watching or listening on
I'm so scared.
on a on the audio only version, go look at the YouTube video. I got this for Jason. Again, we're going to be on the Texas Gulf Coast.
I hope this is not a bathing suit. I just hope, and if it is, I
yeah.
hope there's a lot of
It's
coverage.
hilarious. My wife was like, "Oh my gosh, you got to buy that for Jason." It was a no-brainer. It was not. It was leaving the gas station with me. I don't know if you're going to wear it because it's one of those. It's a conversation starter. I'll just say that.
You have no idea how
I
concerned
probably
am right
burned.
now.
I probably burned $10, but that's okay. Anyway, but you can't go watch the show. I want it to be a
Okay,
surprise.
I promise
but
I won't.
I wanted to show all the viewers. Anyway, y'all, this show, we do it for a lot of reasons. But the main reason, we sell night vision and thermal optics. So if you watch this show enough, you probably know. But all the optics that we review, all the topic shows that we do, that we talk about, are all related in some way to night vision hunting, thermal hunting at night. And so we do sell all the optics that we talk about in the review on the show. So if you want to buy an optic from Outdoor Legacy and you need help, need to talk about it, you see a lot out there, you don't know what to do, you don't know what direction, you don't even may even know where to start, you can give us a call, 877-350-1818, outdoorlegacy.com. We would love a chance to earn your business, and you can call us. And yes, we are still manning the phones all day, every day, getting people called back. But it is nice to have a chance to eat my bologna sandwich every now and then. So, but it's a good problem to have. Jason, why don't you tell everybody what we're talking about today?
Yeah, let's jump into the show. So back on, I don't have the episode number, but it was July 18th, 2019. So 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. We're
Long time
about
ago.
2 months shy of 6 years ago.
Gosh.
We did a show, and it was titled, "Is 640 Worth the Money?" Something like that. Is 640 worth it, or is 640 worth the money? And you have to think about 6 years ago, the average 640 scope was costing somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. All right, and the average was probably going to be above five. But I mean, five to 9,000, 10,000 is really where all of your 640s were. And these were again, at 5,000, that would be the least expensive 640 thermal optic at that time. And this was going to be no laser rangefinders, no ballistic calculators, nothing like that. Wouldn't have been in the scopes at those price ranges. Today, here we are in 2025, and we're going to be talking about, is 1280 ultra high resolution worth the money? And today, those scopes, again, we're recording this in May of 2025. This is going to change, I'm sure, over time, and actually probably get cheaper. But today, we're talking about, being in that, $7,000 price range, Hans?
Yeah, right
And
now
we're talking about,
7,000. A few
and we're
years
talking
ago it
about,
was 18,000. So
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And we're talking
yeah,
about 1280s that all include laser rangefinders, that all include ballistic
yeah.
calculators, that include every bell and every whistle, 2560 ultra high resolution displays. Again, that didn't even exist in a single thermal scope until a couple years ago. Sure didn't in 2019. So it's interesting where we've come. We're basically dealing with the same price range with way more features, but we're talking about 1280. So we're going to adapt that discussion and bring it all the way in to 2025, 6 years later, and say, is 1280 worth it? Before we dive into this, I want to set this up a little bit, and I know Hans is going to start talking about kind of some of the numbers and the mechanics of 1280 resolution. But I just real quickly, to get into this, I want to set this show up and kind of lay the foundation for why we're talking about this. So, as you know, if you're listening to this show, you're probably familiar with the fact, maybe not, but probably, that 1280 ultra high resolution optics are a new thing in the consumer thermal hunting world. And there's several options out there now, but it's still relatively new that you can get this technology. It's amazing to us that the price is what it is, but there's a lot of people that are interested in it, and they're considering, possibly spending that money, but they don't know if they need it. They don't know what it will do for them. They, haven't had the opportunity to go hunt behind one and see what it does in the field. So there's just a whole lot of confusion and myth and questions around, is this something that I need? Is it something that I should look into? Is it all marketing hype? And I just want to say that this is a very, very big jump when we talk about a 1280 by 1024 resolution compared to a 640 by 480 or 640 by
Yeah.
512 resolution. I mean, clearly it's double, but I mean, it's just a giant leap in technology. And when you couple that with these really big displays, these 2560 by 2560 displays, you've just got, again, this technology advance that is something we didn't think we would see, especially at these prices, for a long, long time. And now it's here. And I know it may still sound, you go, $7,000. It's a stupid lot of money. And it is, but you got to look at it in the perspective of where these things are priced compared to other scopes and where we've come from. So, Hans, I just kind of
Yeah.
wanted to lay that out and jump into this, and let's
Yeah.
start talking about it.
Yeah, I'm going to go through that line real quick. And you say that 1280 versus 640, and people are like, well, it's double the resolution, it should be double the picture image, or 100% better. We're going to dive into that and talk about that realistically. So I'm going to talk about, on paper, the difference between 1280 and for the sake of this conversation, we are strictly talking about 1280 and 640. So on paper, what the differences are, Jason is going to touch on what the differences are in the field. So actually looking through the optic, what performance advantage are you going to get with the 1280?
Sure.
We're also going to talk about who needs 1280. Are you somebody that can benefit from that technology, or are you good with something going, like a standard or 640 resolution? And then I want to touch on at the very end, very short misconception about standard resolution or lower resolution versus higher resolution, 640 and up to 1280. I want to go through that real quick, and then we're going to round it out, and Jason's going to give his final thoughts. But on paper, what is the difference? And Jason had to get my calculator out because I'm not good at math. I know. I don't know what we did before calculators. So on paper, what is the difference between a 1280 resolution and a 640? So just so you know, when you hear 1280 or 640, that's really only half of the dimensions, or I don't even know if that's the right word, dimensions or size of the thermal sensor. It's actually the scopes that we're talking about, 1280 by 1024 resolution versus 640. It could be 640 by 480 resolution or 512 resolution. But on paper, we're talking about pixels. How many pixels do these thermal sensors have? And a 1280 by 1024 thermal sensor has I got it on my paper. Where did I put it? Yeah, 1.3 million pixels versus a 640 by 480 resolution scope, which has a little over 300,000 pixels on the sensor. So that's about a million pixel difference between a 1280 and 640. I can hear you. Yeah, you got a math.
Yeah, I do. I want to
put
put in because I know there's going to be guys that are probably not familiar with this, and they're going to say, "Hold on a minute, but I have a 640 by 512, so that's going to be way better." That actually gives you 20,000 more pixels. So the number here, really, when we're dealing with 300,000 versus 1.3 million, a million more pixels, the 20,000 pixels does. Just wanted to throw that out, that if you're listening to this and you go, well, mine's a 512, so you're really not picking up much.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Just it doesn't, no noticeable difference.
Yeah, not a lot of noticeable difference there. So yeah, you're talking about a difference between a 1280 and 640 of about a million pixels. So what does that mean on paper? That seems like a lot. You know, it's every pixel, every dot on the thermal sensor, every pixel on the thermal sensor is just adding clarity, adding definition, adding detail to the background of an image, adding more detail to the foreground of the target. It's just like looking at the first time that you saw a 4K resolution TV, and you're like, man, it just looks like that image is just popping off of the TV screen. I remember, Jason, I think I was in a Best Buy first time I saw a 4K resolution TV, and it just didn't even look real. Do you remember the first time you seen it?
I do.
You know what I mean?
It almost seemed like
fake. It did. It almost looked 3D,
was like,
or like
it
they
was
were
almost
coming out of the
too
screen.
real. Like, this can't be.
Yeah, and you're like, this is unbelievable. Well, that is mainly in part, and there's some other factors in there that I'm not going to get into because I don't understand. But there are, we're talking about pixels and resolution and adding more definition and detail. So yes, on paper, just looking at the pixel difference, there seems like there's going to be a huge difference in the picture image. So, just having that extra definition and detail is going to obviously give you a noticeable picture difference. But what Jason is going to talk about is the most important part, is what does that actually mean out in the field when you got the scopes turned on side by side. Jason, you and I talked a little bit about it before the show. I think you and I are kind of in an agreement as far as what the image difference is going to be when we're talking about ID ranges. But double the pixels or more than double the pixels, is it 100% better ID range is what people probably want to know.
So short answer is I'm going to say no. I don't think it's double everything, even though it is on paper. But what I will say is that there is absolutely a noticeable difference in that image quality. Okay. And again, I need to clarify something here. Hans, we didn't do this early on. I think maybe now it's a little late, but I'm going to do it. We cannot speak for every 1280 scope that is potentially out there today from every unknown brand, or every 1280 resolution scope that may be made tomorrow, next year, or next
now
year.
And into the future is what we need to add in.
What we can speak to is the optics that are on the market today from these top quality name brands like AGM, knock picks from iRay USA, even the 1280, that's discontinued now. That was from Infrared Outdoor. These are the brands that we're going to be speaking about. Talking about, well, I mean, Pulsar's got the 1280 merger binocular. So if we talk about the 1280s that exist from the top brands, there's probably some other brands out there that may have some 1280s, and they may look like 640s or less. That's a whole nother discussion. So I just want to be clear here that what we're talking about is the brands that we sell, the top quality brands out there that are reputable and known to be good. So I just thought that I should make it clear we can't speak to some of these off brands or what have you, that who knows what might come out tomorrow from other brands. So all right, with that, yes, there is a significant image quality difference, and I think that when it comes to ID ranges, the question is, okay, well, if I can ID at 400 yards, can I ID now at 800 yards just because I got a 1280? I would say not necessarily, but I think Hans and I, us actually talking about some yardages and doing some discussion before this show, in one thing you'll know, if you know us, if you've watched this show enough, when we review optics and we talk about what they do, we try to be very conservative. We, first of all, understand that there's a lot of people going to be buying these scopes that have never used a thermal. They don't have thermal experience. And as we all know, it takes a little bit to properly ID animals, especially at the longer ranges. Sometimes you just have to figure out what they look like as a thermal silhouette versus, looking at them in the daytime. So with that, we do try to be conservative. And we try to be very realistic. And we hope that you get your optic and you go, man, this is a little better than they said it was going to be. But we think that a minimum increase in identification range with a good 1280 over a good 640 is going to be 25% minimum in distance. We think that range could go up to 50%. Want to be realistic? A really experienced hunter, they're really good scope and really good conditions, it could go up past that. But I think safely 25 to 50% further is a very realistic range of what you can expect when it comes to that increased image quality. Another thing I want to talk about, and Hans and I struggled a little bit with where to talk about this, so I want to talk about it here because we're talking about the realistic benefits of what you can get out of these 1280s and this image quality. And one thing that's important to note is that where you will absolutely see a benefit is when you touch your digital zoom. Because every time you digitally zoom your optic, you cut your resolution in half. So if, let's just say you have a 640 by 480, and it's we're gonna use easy numbers. It's a 2-power base mag, and you zoom it to 4 power. You now have a 320 by 240 resolution. Okay. Well, if you take a 2-power 1280 by 1024 and you double using digital zoom and you go to 4 power, your resolution is now a 640 by 512. So you can see what's happening there. Now, I want to be clear. I want to say this, and Hans is going to back me up on this. You could say, oh my gosh, so you mean I buy a 1280 and I digitally zoom it one time, it goes to 640 by 512, it's just as good as a 640 digitally zoomed? I would say no. The 640 natively is going to be better because that's all done through the lenses. Okay. The digital zoom is going to degrade the image, but you still do have a 640 resolution. It is still going to be a very good image quality and much, much better than if you had that 640 scope and you used a digital zoom on that. So I would say where Hans and I, if you're going to buy a 640 from us, we might say, man, it's going to look great at the base magnification through the lens. Zoom it one time, it's still really good. Zoom it again, and it's getting pretty grainy at that point. With a 1280, I would say it's going to be beautiful at its base magnification. Zoom it up one time, it's still going to look really
Yeah,
good.
really good.
Zoom it again, and it's still pretty good. So you're getting an extra step, a whole extra step of digital zoom. So you say, well, what's the point in all this? And you're talking about, digital zoom and magnifying. What does that mean? In layman's terms, what it means is that if you, on a 1280, reach out there, zoom up digitally, you're going to maintain a better image quality longer. So if you're having to shoot, maybe you're not even shooting long range. Maybe you're shooting a hog at, whatever, 100 yards, and you just want a little more magnification than whatever your scope offers, whether that's 2.5, 3 power, whatever it is. You zoom up, you're going to have a better image with that 1280 than you would if you had a 640. Hans, what do you say to all that?
No, I think with the magnification factor you put on there, I think you bring up a really good point. We're going to talk about who needs 1280, and I think that'll kind of work in there well with that conversation. But just there's a lot of things that we can get into as far as the difference of 1280 and is it worth it and all of that to be considered. But the ID range alone, I think, can help narrow people down to if this is an optic that they need or not based on that difference. Now, there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, I'm hunting small fields, I can't even see past a tree line at 400 yards. Or you have people that are in wide open fields that can see a mile without any limitations as far as how they can see. And with that, even though, there is that, the which is a pretty dramatic difference in ID range if you think about it. Yes, it's not 100% better ID range, but when you're still talking about that, 25 or 50% more, that's a lot. I mean,
and if you're talking about, let's just throw a number on it. If you just say the difference went from, I don't know, I'm just going to make this up, 600 versus 800 yards, it's a long way. That's 25%. That's a long ways.
So, with that being said, I do think that, though, the biggest factor in that, and I'm glad you brought up that, is the digital magnification. Now, let's jump into probably one of the bigger questions of the episode is who needs 1280 resolution? Because there's a lot of people out there, Jason, that are like, I'm on the fence, and I would say this, and we didn't talk about this before the show, and you might say I'm completely wrong, but I think somebody that is, it's probably true. Somebody that is looking at,
just in case,
that'll make more sense when you see the gift that I got you, because anybody that would buy something like this, you would say, yeah, whatever they're about to say is wrong. Probably the person that Jason is right now looking at a 1280 resolution or considering a 1280 resolution is probably not buying their very first thermal. Would you agree that this is somebody that
I would say generally speaking, I know there's exceptions to every rule, but yes, I would say most of the guys that are looking at 1280 thermal scopes right now are at the very least would be their second scope. Some of them that may have been thermal hunting and had 10 scopes. So yeah, I would say it's normally something that somebody's working their way into most of the time.
The general process of getting into thermal, a lot of time the people take the route of jumping in and getting a standard resolution like a 384, and then maybe stepping up to a 640 or stepping up from a 640 to a 1280. But I think that the people that are getting into and really considering 1280 are people that are very familiar with thermal, and people that have one or multiple optics, because that's the phone calls that we're getting or people like, hey, I've got a 640 or I got a 384. What do I need to get into this? So Jason, let's talk about this, because there's a lot of things to be said as far as who really needs it, and to be honest, who is not going to benefit from a 1280, I think might be an important question too.
Well, I'm gonna let you use and you said this joking to me when we were talking about this show and just kind of brainstorming it out, an analogy.
Oh yeah.
And you're gonna be like, it was actually really good, and I know you're being you're joking but it's the truth, and you
Yeah.
use the golf reference. I mean, use that
Yeah.
reference, and I think
Yeah.
this is a little bit tongue in cheek, but it's a fair point.
So, and I use this analogy a lot with a lot of things, but I think, do you need 1280 resolution goes back to the same conversation, Jason, that we had. Do you need 640 resolution? And I think it comes down to how often you're going to be using this optic. If you are hunting once a year or twice a year, you're probably not somebody, you might be, but you're probably not somebody that's looking at getting in 1280. I think that the people that are using this optic quite a bit, multiple times per week, multiple times per month, several hunting trips per year, is somebody that is looking for a 1280 scope. And it's just like a guy that golfs 2 or 3 times a week is probably not, unless you're me, but I don't golf that much, but I would do this. A person that is golfing multiple times per week or multiple times per month probably didn't pick up their clubs from aisle 14 in the sporting goods section of Walmart. I'll just say that.
You
They might have
really
started.
jazzed that up
I
for this
did
show.
jazz it
Yeah.
up for dramatic effect. They may have started there, and they were
Sure.
golfing once a month, and they're like, man, I really like this. I'm gonna buy a nicer set of clubs, and then they're doing really good. They're shooting really good. They're playing a bunch. This is their main hobby, their main sport. They probably have already sprung for a really nice, really expensive set of clubs. So I think your investment, Jason, your investment into the optic might be equal to your time investment into the sport. I think
Yeah.
there's a correlation there.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm over here rubbing my eye. I don't know if something flew into my eye or what. So I agree with you on that. And I would say that there are people, a lot of guys, and there's nothing wrong with this, that have the money and they want to buy this scope. They might use it once, they might use it twice a year. They don't know. But the money doesn't bother them for those guys. I think those are the people that say I want 1280 because it's the best, and I don't know how much I'm going to use it, but they're not concerned that it might cost $2,000 more than the other scope. You know what I'm getting at? So I think there is an exception to the people like, I can afford that. This is a gift I'm buying myself, and I'll just do it. I think, though, the average person is what you're talking about. They're working their way into that. And I think we all know that and I'm going to use your golf analogy for a minute, is that you could take a very good golfer and you could give him the Walmart clubs, and you could give me his clubs that are custom made, or you could custom make them to me, and they could be all the top name brands. It could be the best of the best, and he could whip me.
Yeah.
He could take two clubs, Walmart clubs, and beat me. But you know what I mean? Because I'm not a golfer. And so I want to be clear that just because you do this all the time, it doesn't mean, yes, do you need 1280? You don't need it. A guy that knows what he's doing and's got a good 640 scope could beat a guy with a 1280 who doesn't know what he's doing. All right. So I want to be clear of that, but I do think it is the natural progression to want better and better as we really get invested into a hobby or a sport. Now, some people say, well, my budget, I want those things, but I can't afford those. And then that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not here to look down on anybody that's not using 1280 by any means. I think I've used this analogy. I think Hans probably, I like his analogies. I think he cringes at mine, but that's okay. He's the kind of guy who buys stuff at gas stations
Yeah,
for
100%.
gifts to people. So,
100%.
no, I like to use a lot of analogies. And if any of y'all talk to me on the phone, you probably heard me do this about trucks. And the reason I say this is most all of us drive trucks, and it's something we're all very familiar with. And I've made this analogy for years about 384 versus 640. And now I'll make the same analogy about 640 versus 1280. And what I would say is this. If you're doing all your shooting within the normal confines of what a 640 can do, so let's say a good 640, let's say, a good one is going to be 4 to 500 yard shooting range. Okay, maybe you got a little, extra magnification, maybe you got the laser rangefinder, but you're going to be shooting inside of those ranges. All right. If you're going to take a 1280 and you're going to shoot at those exact same ranges, I would say that you are not going to kill more hogs or more coyotes inside those I say normal ranges. Hans and I don't shoot that far, but inside those ranges, you're not going to kill a whole bunch more animals just because you buy a 1280. Just like in a pickup truck, if you get heated and cooled leather seats, now everybody agrees that, man, that's nice. Okay, that is a luxury to have, but nobody buys those heated and cooled leather seats because they think they're going to get better gas mileage or because they think they're going to get more horsepower to pull a trailer. Okay, you're buying it for luxury, and it does offer a more comfortable, better experience driving down the road. It's nicer when you get into that truck when it's 105 outside or when it's 20 or 10 degrees outside. There is a luxury and there is a real benefit. Does it mean everybody needs them? No. Does it mean that it's worth it to you? Maybe not. That's where I put this 640 versus 1280. It is a luxury. It's a decision you have to make if it's worth it if you're shooting inside of what a 640 is capable of. Now, if you're the guy that says, man, I am trying to squeeze every single drop of range out of the optic, that's where I think you need to be looking at a 1280. If you're trying to go past what a conventional 640 is capable of, then yeah, I think 1280 definitely you need that. You need to squeeze every drop of distance and range out of it. But for other people, I think it comes down to a luxury. I think it comes down to, do you want it? Can you afford it? Is it worth it? If you can afford it and it doesn't bother you, hurt you, pain you to spend that money, then yes, I think it is worth it. But I think that's a personal decision at that point.
Yeah, I agree with that. So let's talk about one thing before we wrap a bow on this show. One misconception that I hear about quite often when people call in, and this not just pertains to 1280 resolution, but also the difference between 384 and 640 resolution. I hear a lot of people say that, well, I've heard, it's not usually that they've seen this, because it's usually I heard this or I was told this, that a 640 resolution or a 1280 resolution, that you really don't see any picture image difference really until you get past about 300, 400 yards or so. So their conception is that the image is the same, but you only notice that detail and image difference once you get past a certain yardage. And that is not necessarily correct. I'll say this, it is not correct. There's still that huge difference in pixels. If you're talking about a 1280 versus the standard 640, you're talking about 1,000,000 pixels difference. So even between yards 0 and 300, the image on a higher resolution, 640 or 1280, is still going to be a cleaner image, more detailed. The edges of the animal or the objects are going to be crisper. The edges are going to be tighter and cleaner. You're going to see a lot more detail in the foreground and background. On these 1280 scopes, you can see on a bright night, you can see shade on the ground that's being cast from a tree. So yes, even in the short range, you are going to see that difference. So I've heard that that floating around. I've heard that from people calling in, that they think that there's no picture image difference. Now, really, like we can get into, and I think Jason did a good job, the true benefit is in that longer range stuff, but you do see a difference. So when you see these videos online on YouTube of these 1280 scopes, and I've shared several of them of hogs at 25 yards and 50 yards, there's just a whole lot of detail in there. I mean, not just in the animal, But I've got some video of them, hogs pushing around a pig pipe. I mean, you can see the detail on the rope. You can see the detail on the PVC pipe. It just shows a lot. So yes,
Well,
you're going to see
yeah,
more detail at any distance, really.
yeah, I agree. And wrapping this up, I want to say this. So, one thing to be wary of is side by side video comparisons.
Yeah.
You won't see those on this channel. It's not something we do. And the reason is, and this is a whole
Well,
nother rabbit trail we could get into, but it's we believe, and again, be this is even stranger maybe for us to say. Some people would think as being content creators, is creating
mhm.
the show, doing reviews, showing you video from the Optics at Review. Hans on his channel and all the social media is just video, video, video. But we still tell you that we don't believe that the videos do justice to most of these optics. And we think that it's very difficult to show you the true abilities of a scope. And I think there's even ways, if somebody wanted to be, especially in side-by-side stuff, to be misleading. And
Well, I think
sometimes
what
they're
it
even...
does, I think what it does, Jason, is it makes the when you do like a 640 beside a 1280, I think it makes the 640 resolution look better than it is
Correct.
in the field,
Yeah,
and I think it makes the 1280
that's
look
right.
less as good as it is in the field.
I agree.
It's not. It
So
doesn't do. Yeah,
it
it
doesn't
doesn't
do it
work.
justice. So
Yeah.
so at the end of the day, what I was going to make the point here is this: we're in sales, all right. And one of the things that Hans and I and Garrett, when we're talking to people on the phone and we're trying to figure out what a guy needs, we're trying, again, as you see this in our reviews, to be realistic. Because what we don't want is to oversell something.
Mhm.
Because if we oversell something, we have a customer who spent a whole lot of money, who's then not happy, who then either wants to return it, or maybe he's going to keep it, but it's buyer's remorse, and he's not happy, didn't have a good experience, and he's going to take that experience, bad experience, out on us.
Yeah.
And maybe he doesn't buy from us again, or maybe he tells his buddy not to buy from us, or he doesn't trust us. So we want to be sure that we're being, accurate, realistic, conservative in what we're recommending to people. But I'm going somewhere with this. We've sold a lot of 1280 optics,
Mhm.
and I have yet to have one single person that I know of, Hans, or maybe somebody out there who comments and goes, well, I'm one of them, who's bought from us, who we've told them what to expect, who got it and said, yeah, this isn't very good, or this isn't as good as I thought it was going to be. I mean, now granted, I can't help everybody's expectation, but we do try to manage those expectations of realistically telling somebody, what the optic will do. The point that I'm making is the consumers are speaking. They're buying these optics with their hard-earned money, and there's a lot of guys that are doing this with a little twinge of a, gosh, I hope this is worth it. I
Mhm.
hope that I've already got a good 640 that I love. I'm wanting to upgrade, but I hope when I get it, it's better. And the consumers are saying that it's better. Okay, not just us two guys sitting here selling scopes telling you
Yeah.
it's better. The market is speaking, and these scopes are offering what you're talking about, Hans, just that sharper, crisper, clearer image. Yes, the longer identification range, potentially the longer shooting range for some of these guys who are really into that. Again, as I mentioned before, the digital zoom, being able to use your digital zoom some as needed, and maintaining a better image, and just the overall clarity of the whole image, from the detail in the animal to the detail in the background, as you said, and the longer distances. At the end of the day, is 1280 worth it? And my answer to that is, it depends. Is it
Mhm.
worth it to you? There are people who have more money than, Hans and I combined will ever make in our entire lives, and they might for themselves say, this ain't worth it. I'm not spending my money on that. It's not. So I think it is an individual question that you have to answer. And if you need help with that answer, we're happy to take specific scopes and walk you through this process and say, okay, here's a 1280. It's this magnification. This is what it's capable of. This is how it compares to this 640 scope. And we'll just tell you the truth. And you may get all the way down to it and say, you know what? I can save $1,000. I can save
Mm-hmm.
$3,000 and get a 640 and it'll do all I need. Fine. That's great. We want to make sure that whatever you're getting is the right thing
Mm-hmm.
for your needs.
So I think, yeah, and also what you're hearing, Jason, that yes, that it can be worth the money, but if people see the title of this video and say, oh, well, these guys sell thermal. Absolutely, they're going to say that it is worth the money and that I should get it. And you're not hearing that. You're hearing that it could be, and that's where it's important again. And I know this said this at the beginning of the video. Is if you're considering buying a brand new thermal, whether it's a 384, 640, 256, 1280, 1024, whatever it is, and you're wondering if this is the best use of your money. You know, there's some questions out there. Jason, should I blow all my budget on a $7,000 1280 resolution scope, or should I get a good 640 scope and a monocular? These are important decisions that need to be made, and we can help you with that. So you can give us a call if you want to buy an optic from Outdoor Legacy and you need help deciding. Give us a call, 877-350-1818. If you like this show, if you like what you see, please subscribe to our YouTube channel on YouTube. You can do the same thing on Spotify. But we appreciate you coming back every week and giving us a thumbs up, and love seeing all the comments as well. So if you want to follow Outdoor Legacy, you can on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can also follow me on my personal pages, Hans ETX, Hans ETX, on Facebook and on Instagram, and also on YouTube. The show, you found it. Congratulations. If you're like, man, I want to listen on I'm in a trip, I can't watch, but I want to listen. Spotify has all of that, or iTunes, Jason, all kinds of different places. But we appreciate you joining us this weekend, every week. Jason, I'll let you
All right,
close
guys.
it out.
I hope you enjoyed this show. Again, we'd love to have your business. Feel free to give us a call if you need help picking out that thermal scope and would like to buy from Outdoor Legacy, 877-350-1818 between now and next week. Guys, y'all stay safe, and we will see y'all next Thursday.